Developing Tomorrow's Leaders is a podcast that is all about educating, supporting, and inspiring the next generation of leaders.
Well, good day to all of you out there listening to us. Welcome to another episode of Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. I'm your host, Antoine Thompson, or Coach T. My guest today has a very extensive experience in helping young people prepare for college and be successful through that process. She's founder and CEO of College Ready and CR Tutoring and Test Strategies. She's a college graduate and a certified independent college strategist. She is a best-selling author, a member of the HECA, which is an ethics organization, and a member of SOFA, which is Society of Financial Awareness. She knows what it takes to compete at the top-tier schools, as well as finding the best fit college for all students. She believes that no two students are the same, and each student must have their own strategy and plan to be successful. Please help me welcome Shellee Howard to Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. How are you doing today, Shellee?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. Anytime I can get somebody on that shares my passion about helping the next generation of young people, I'm all about that. And I really appreciate it. And what you're going to be talking about today is something I think is really important that a lot of parents can learn a lot from, but not only just learn from your experience as a strategist, but also as a parent yourself, because you have 4 adult kids, correct?
Correct.
And that is exactly where I would like to start, because you have 2 sons and 2 daughters, correct?
Yes, I do.
See, most people are just happy to have a son and a daughter. You doubled up on each one of those. How crazy is that, right?
I got lucky.
Yeah, indeed. So let's start with your oldest son. Tell us about him and what he's doing. And I think everybody should take notes on these 4 amazing kids that Shellee has.
Well, thank you for that. I think they're pretty amazing. They're all very humble. So when I talk about them, they blush, but they have worked super hard. So my firstborn son actually told me in 8th grade he wanted to be a brain surgeon and go to a top tier school. And if you're panicking, yes, I panicked too. It turns out that he actually is living his dream with a slight variation. He ended up going to Harvard pre-med. And then from there, he went on to UC San Diego for medical school. And now he's an orthopedic surgeon at UCLA. So at 28 years old, he is living his dream. And it is a perfect fit for him. He says every day is just such a great opportunity. My second born, 4 years later, is my oldest daughter. Her dream was to help people. She didn't really know how she was going to help people until I took her to an orphanage in Peru, and she figured it out very quickly. She had a heart to serve children. So now she is a registered nurse in a pediatric emergency room. She is the one that holds the little babies when they're just not doing so well. And so she's living her dream of serving her community. Then I was blessed to marry into another family. And the oldest son, my stepson, he's a sophomore at San Francisco State, and he is going to be a broadcast journalist. And so he has a totally different path. He is absolutely loving his major and his freedom. My stepdaughter, she is leaving for Prague. She is going to study at the American Anglo University, and she will be a business international entrepreneur, where she will have the opportunity to get both a European degree and a US degree in 3 years for $27,000. So she's living her best life, studying in a foreign country, traveling the world, and getting to experience something that is very unique. I also had the pleasure this past year of being a mother mentor to an Italian exchange student for a year, where she got to learn brilliant English, and now she's back in Italy doing her senior year in high school, and she'll head off to college, probably looking at going into business. So I've had a really great opportunity with my own kids and a lot of other people's children.
Yes, absolutely. That is truly amazing. And yes, you should be very proud and happy. And and happy for them as well. But here's my first question I would ask you as relates to that. Obviously, did a great job with your kids and your stepkids is great. But what got you into wanting to help other kids get into the same situation that your kids are in?
Wow, the reasons are deep. Probably the ones you can most relate to is I was hearing my children's friends talk about the overwhelm, the stress out, the anxiety, the depression, the frustration, the not knowing where to start. And really, where it came a reality that I needed to do something was at my son's graduation in from high school. And I was sitting in the front row, so very proud. This is at the beginning of all of this. And my son was giving his salutatorian speech and then his ASB president speech. And a young man sitting next to me very genuinely said, "Dude, I didn't even know that kid was smart." And I'm like, brilliant. He's a normal kid having a normal life who gets to go to Harvard and experiencing graduate without debt. This is exactly what I want to give to the world. And it was truly leaning in to my passion to helping these children, these young teenagers, get out of the overwhelm, get out of the unknown, the stress, the anxiety, and really feel empowered to having this opportunity. And that's how it all started.
There's two things I got from that. One is it's amazing what kids say, what you pick up on the genuality and authentic things that they say. And it means more to us when we hear them because we understand that there's something underlying meaning behind it. The other would be you mentioned about kids being stressed out and high levels of anxiety, but it also translates to the parents as well. And I think it transfers, right? Because parents are probably just as stressed out and have the high level of anxiety as well. True.
Absolutely. I don't, sometimes it's the parent and then the student feeds off of them. And sometimes it's the student and now the parent's worried that their student is going to be anxious or overwhelmed about this process and they want to protect them. So it can be both sometimes. It really comes down to how prepared the family is, because what I have found is the more knowledge and prepared a family has, the less stressed out they all are.
Right. No, absolutely. Where would you say the earliest time for them to really focus on college so that they minimize and or eliminate that stress and anxiety?
Because every child develops differently with their personality and their ability to cope, I always tell families the best place to start where it's fun. So if you're on a family vacation to Boston, Massachusetts, and you happen to be near Harvard, and you happen to just walk on Harvard Square and happen to talk about this amazing history that all started and how students who, go to college have opportunities, and it's just fun and it's high level and it's as if you were going to a museum or to study art. It's just another experience you do together. And then as they get a little older and start asking questions, then you can talk about your G-rated version of going to college if you did enjoy college. And if you didn't go, how maybe you wished you would have. Or maybe it's just, I'm not the right person to ask. Let's get the right person to ask. So it really comes down to where that student is in their maturity. I have found that a lot of students are fearful because they have no idea what to expect. And so that fear comes from the unknown, not from college. It's just like anything else, the fear of riding the bike for the first time or the fear of starting kindergarten, or it's that unknown. So the more we can help a student have the resources to understand, the less fear they will have.
This may be not the right time, but I'm asking, just listening to you share that example, where do you see teachers fitting into that process? Meaning, as a support, really try to feed them the information to get them thinking about it. And And then I think the second part, do you think that adds to the stress or alleviates the stress if they have that internal support, meaning not just at home, but also in school?
So I love that question. And I really believe teachers are angels. In my book, they have played a pivotal part in my own children's life. I just think they're amazing. Where I think they could be of best help is really pointing out that students' strengths, gifts, and talents. So if a student is really good at writing and they just have a gift of the written word, that is a brilliant place for a teacher to go, you are really good at writing, or a mathematician, or somebody who's really good at, leading or leadership. Stepping in and supporting that child and just saying, you're really good at that. You should think about what else you can do to build on that strength. What I get worried about is the opportunity when a student is maybe good at math or building Legos and they get pivoted or put into a pocket of you should be a architect or you should be an engineer, because that student then holds on to that. I should be an engineer, but they have no idea what an engineer does. And they live their whole life, I'm going to be an engineer. And I ask the student when they're in high school, okay, well, why do you want to be an engineer? And they say, I don't know. Somebody told me I was going to be an engineer. So it can go both ways. And we have to be careful not to pigeonhole a student, but at the same time, helping them to lean in to those opportunities. And I think a lot of this can come from community service. When a student is serving their community and they're figuring out, do I like people? Do I not like people? Do I like animals? Do I not like animals? Do I like finance? Do I not like finance? If we can have adults lean in and go, you are really great dealing with that XYZ, maybe you can do more of that. They start to see, am I good at it? Do I like it? These are the ways students can really prepare for college without preparing for college.
Right, right. Taking that pressure off, that natural attrition of, older I get, the more I have to focus on, getting ready for college. But you raise a great point when you're talking about not pigeonholing kids and forcing them one way. This is also brings it back home sometimes where, people say, well, granddad was a doctor or a lawyer and I was a lawyer, you should be a lawyer. And then that natural pressure is put on kids. Well, my dad or my mom wants me to be because my granddad was, so that's what I'm going to do. And my question would be also, how many kids have you worked with that have that mindset? They think that this is what they're going to do because it's a family tradition and lineage, and they want to continue that, not to disappoint their parents. How many kids have you worked with that kind of fall into that?
I would say it really gets into a cultural mindset. In certain cultural certain families, the parents will say my child can either be a lawyer, an engineer, or a doctor. That's all there is to them. They get to pick out of those three. That's a cultural thing. And it's really comes down to how open-minded a family is, because that is real. I have some students in my program that it was told to me that these are their three options. And then there's some students who just feel the pressure. Like the parents are going, we don't care what they do. Like we really don't. But the child is sensing that, well, my parents would really prefer that I was a doctor. And their parents who are doctors are going, no, that is not what we're saying. We don't agree. So sometimes it's the unwritten or the unsaid, and sometimes it is the said. And it really is family by family. I have some families that are like, please tell my child that they'll be poor and homeless if they are an art major. And I'm like, I can't say that to a child, but I can help them to see that maybe it would be great to own an art gallery. That's okay, right? There's not one way to live your love of art, but I'm not going to tell a child that they're going to be poor or homeless for any reason. because I believe in uplifting and letting them dream big, and then falling back on, well, if you want to be a botanist, that's awesome. But how much money will you make? And is money even important to you? Those are important things. But the other thing is, a lot of 15, 16, and 17-year-olds don't have a concept of financial awareness. So they look at, oh, $26,000 a year. That's awesome. Of course, that's what I want to do. And you're like, because as an adult, that is scary if they want to live in certain geographies, especially. So really not shooting a student down, but letting them come to this awareness on their own, being guided and led without, it doesn't matter to me what they do as long as they understand. Doesn't make sense to get a $77,000 a year loan to go and be an elementary school teacher. Does that serve them well? It may and it may not, but I want them to know before they get themselves into that situation.
You mentioned something about the money, the $26,000 a year, and I'm getting excited about that. I recently had a guest on, happened to be Guinness World Book of Records fastest reader, and he was telling me about some of the clients that he had taught how to read, how to increase their math, and he taught a group of 11 and 15-year-olds how to start a business, and they raised $93,000 in their first year. So these were kids before they're, some still in middle school and some just getting in high school, understanding financial literacy and how to start a business. So you think about how well off they are before they even get into college. They know, so they already know when I get my degree, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm already have a business. You're just extending on that. So I just wanted to share that, you were mentioning that, it kind of just popped in my head. And it's so true that, kids do fall short when they don't understand the importance of money and how to budget, how to finance. But the other part, what leads into that too, is about the cost of college, and then that being a big stressor on families, not just the kids. The kids know it costs money, but also with the parents.
Yeah, so I would say, it has been said that the cost of college is now the number one fear in families with children. And unfortunately, it's based on information that's not always true, or they don't have the full information. Because what I would tell those families is, first, there's 13 colleges that are tuition free, which means your student just has to work to earn an education. That's my first thing. My second thing is, our students in the last 2 years have earned over $17.6 million in free money, in scholarships they don't have to pay back. So there's a ton of money out there. Just because you don't know where to find it is probably more of the problem. But I tell families to think about it this way. You could hire a CPA, or you could do your own taxes. The CPA is going to show you where to get the money back. Doing it on your own, you're going to be stumbling through it, making mistakes. So we know where the most generous colleges are. And so if money is the number one driving force in the need for help, we're going to show them where the most generous colleges are. And they have hugely deep pockets. Their alumni groups are insane. If a student can get into a top tier school like an Ivy, if they get in, a college will guarantee that the student will get out. They have the money, they have the alumni. There is a ton of opportunity, but people sometimes don't work hard thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, I can't go to that school anyway. But that's very unfortunate, because if a student does stand out and they do get in, colleges step up and there is a ton of money. So really, it's about educating yourself and your student, and then picking the right colleges and knowing, is that school generous? Because if you pick a list of all public schools that don't give merit scholarships, you're going to pay that sticker price. But I have a student right now who's full ride at Vanderbilt, and she could have paid full price at University of California, Los Angeles. So it really comes down to, if we didn't show her that Vanderbilt is a very generous school, especially for some majors, she would never have known that she could have gone to school for free. She would have just assumed that she couldn't have.
Wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And I would think that a lot of parents also are always worried about proximity, proximity. I don't want you going away too far, so they don't take the time to investigate. And to your point, to find out what's out there, like this young lady, Vanderbilt versus UCLA. I mean, free ride, pay full tuition. Yeah, I don't know how many miles it's a long way, but it's an education, right? It's a free education. So
Right.
I think you make a valid point that if everybody's listening there, take the handcuffs off, you know, open your eyes, contact people like Shellee, which we'll get to that shortly. But it does make sense. And I think a lot of people, it's the fear of the unknown, and that keeps parents from investigating, keeps kids from investigating, and also keeps them from aspiring. And I want to go back to one thing that when you were talking about kids and kind of the fear, have you found that kids are more passionate about what they want to do versus goal oriented, if that makes sense? Because I sense that there's more passion in kids now than wanting to make a difference versus kind of wanting to follow the traditional path.
That is I hadn't thought about it in those terms. I will say, after doing this for 15 years, there are more verbal advocates than ever before. But with that said, more students are lacking passion than ever before. So you ask an interesting question because it's an either or, but it's not a reality. Let me explain. When I help students do a passion with purpose project, so every one of my students in my program guarantees me that they will do at least 200 service hours. That is a requirement in my program. It is Shellee's belief that if every 17 and 18-year-old did 200 service hours before they left home, our world would be a much better place. So that is my desire, is a better world. With that in mind, when I sit down with those students and I ask them, what are your top 10 passions? I had one student pick up their cell phone and ask Siri, what am I passionate about? And you're like, whoa, is that what? And the student was being genuine, that it wasn't that they were trying to be silly or funny. And then I started really paying attention, and students really are struggling with their passions because they're spending so much time on their cell phone looking at TikTok and Instagram and these perfect bubbles, that they're really not outside figuring, am I fast or slow? Am I a good climber? Am I great on my bike? Like, wait, what am I passionate about? Or they're on their computer, or they're studying more hours than ever before. So these students are really struggling. So when I ask them, what are you passionate about? They can give me maybe one or two, and then they look at their parent, and the parent's like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. And that is just as scary, right? And then we have the advocates, and I love this group because the parents will say, oh, they need to be a lawyer. And I'm like, well, why do you say that? Because they argue with me all day long. And I'm like, oh, I see where we're going with that. That doesn't mean they should be a lawyer. That means that they are an advocate. That could be something totally different. They could be in social work for that, matter. And so I lean and I listen on that. And yeah, there's some students who are more determined, more passionate, more willing to go in and fight. But there's also a lot of students who are more anxious because of that culture, all of that advocacy that's going on, all of that news media of all of these people who are fighting for their rights are also making these quiet introverts terrified of, how do I live life on a college campus when there's these protests going on? So do you see why it's not a simple this or
Yeah.
that? It's well, wait a minute, we need to really investigate both sides.
Yeah. But I asked a question just because of, with my experience with kids, and I sense more passion from them. And I've had three kids that have done their senior projects as part of our nonprofit, volunteering their time every summer. And so I know that they are people. They love people, love being around people, and so I know whatever they're going to do is going to be involved in that because they're very genuine. But I also asked a question because of just some of the literature I've been reading, and it just seems as though that's the trend. But back to your point, I also understand your explanation too is it really passion or is it chasing something that you don't truly know what it is? Back to your point about social media, they look and they see all these influencers. Oh yeah, I'm going to be that. They have no idea what it takes and what it entails to do that and get to that level. What sacrifices have been made by these individuals, and what failures have they gone through to achieve the success that they have now?
Interesting, right? A lot of people don't look at what these students are faced with right now. Life was a little simpler before the cell phone and the computer. Life was not so available. Your little environment was your environment. Now the world it's global, and that is a great thing on a lot of accounts. But it's also for other students, it's tough. It's the same thing with going online during COVID. Some of my students loved it because they didn't have to worry about who they were going to have lunch with, or not making friends. They were in their home in their cozy clothes eating their snacks. They thrived. They got all A's. They were amazing. And the students who love the social element, they got really depressed. They got
Sure.
really lonely. They got really anxious. They got really bad grades because they were so unable to connect with people. And so we have these two different types of students that are now going down this path called future. And I have students who get on a call with me and they say, I don't want to go to college. And I'm like, that is okay. But what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I want to be an influencer. Outstanding. Where's your business plan? Oh, what? And that is where we're seeing these two paths. So when I help students, we have a program called See Our Future Now. And I guide students through this. If not this, then what is it? That's okay. You don't have to do one path, but you can't just say, I want to be an influencer and do nothing. You can't just sit at home and hope the world comes to you. You need a business, you need a plan, you need a structure for that. So for all your listeners out there, I don't disagree that there's lots of opportunity, but what I am struggling with is, what is the plan?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think there aren't many plans out there, and I think a lot of people are reaching for success and like, well, I miss here, I'll keep trying here, try there, without documenting the failures. I think that's the other part. I think that's what you're also implying with the business plan. I mean, you got to have, just like anything else, the strategy. I was hoping you'd say strategy. You didn't say strategy. I was waiting for that, uh, but this has been great. I wanted you to share a little bit more about what you do specifically. I know we've talked in general terms, but I really want you to tell listeners when they reach out to you, when they contact you, this is what they can expect.
Absolutely. So we help students from a 3.0 GPA as big as you can dream. We had 3 students last year with a 5.0, and you're just like, that's just crazy. So we know that every child is unique, and there is not one way of doing what we're about to do. So what College Ready was established to do is to help a student and their family find the perfect fit for their future. If that's college, great. If it's not college, then what is it? If it is college, we help them to figure out, what do you want more? An academic fit, a social fit, an athletic fit, a financial fit? These are the things we need to plan for and strategize about, because a college is looking for you to not be what your best friend is or the other students in your class. They want to know who you are and how will you make their college better. That is what we do. So we help students either in small groups or do it yourself or private one-to-one figure out your standout strategy. How will you stand out on your application, on your essays? What will make you genuinely you and make a college want to give you admittance versus passing you on? So College Ready was established to have a return on investment, which means if you want to have this career or this major, does it make sense? Our students don't apply to just a random selection. Every college on their list has a reason for being. Is it an academic fit, a social fit, an athletic fit, a financial fit? So your list is your first way to a financially fit college experience. So that college list is more important than anything else you're going to do, even more so than how you spend your 4 years in high school, because if it doesn't fit, you either won't get in or you won't get the money you want.
Interesting. About a year ago, I had a group round groups discussion with some high schoolers and middle schoolers. And one of the young ladies shared something that you just mentioned. She said she spent the first 2 years of high school scheduling all of her classes with her friends, not thinking about what she was having to accomplish before she graduated. And she goes, halfway through her sophomore year, they realized, I'm not getting done what I need to get done. And I'm doing things for the masses as opposed to what's important for me. And ultimately she changed. And this all came about because I asked one question. I said, what is the biggest impact and influence that you have in school? Is it your friends? Is it academics? Or is it athletics? And it was interesting that the influence with friends was number one on that. And this young lady's example was kind of tied. I just wanted to kind of share that as an example of what you're talking about and making sure you stay focused. This is about as cut and dry as you can get. And I absolutely love what you do. And obviously you're passionate about what you do, because not just because of what your kids have done either. I mean, that's just proof. That's just better proof. And I hope you use them as examples with some of your clients as well. Do you not?
I show them that anything is possible. I was a single mom. I knew I couldn't afford it. My children knew that if they got in, we really needed return on investment. And so I walk the walk and I talk the talk, and they did the work. I didn't do the work. They had to step in and do it. You can't want this for your child.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I would tell you say it again, but that's okay. I'll say it for you. You cannot do everything for your kids, because the longer you do that, the longer they're going to expect you to do it. And then when you stop doing it, they're not going to understand why you stopped doing it. True?
Yes, and I would add to that, it's also fair to say that your 15, 16, 17, or 18-year-old cannot do this process on their own. They need you. They need your wisdom. They need your experience. They need you to second guess them, because they have very limited resources and they're going to do things that may not make sense. So allowing them to apply to colleges that your family cannot afford, and then they get in and you tell them, sorry, we can't afford you to go. What was the point of all of that? It's
Right.
better if you have those conversations before you apply and make sure that there's a really good strategy. So when they get in, it's a team effort. That is success. And so they do need you, parents. And if you are not able to, or don't want to fight with your student, that's where we step in. And we would be honored to make sure and support your family. We offer a complimentary 30-minute discovery call. Just go to our website, say you heard about us on this podcast, and we're happy to help you to give your students guidance. And then I also wanted to offer your listeners a free copy of my best-selling book, How to Send Your Student to College Without Losing Your Mind or Your Money. And you go to freebook.collegereadyplan.com. And that is it. That's the best place to start. Free is a great place to get knowledge.
free is a great place to get knowledge. Well, doesn't get any better than that. Shellee, I really appreciate all this great information. I will just remind everybody that I will be putting all of this information in the show notes. So when you go back and listen to this, which I know you will, because if you don't, you could get in trouble. Shellee's email address is Shellee, SHELLEE, at collegereadyplan.com. And her website is collegereadyplan.com. And as she mentioned before, to get her free book, it is freebook.collegereadyplan.com. And Shellee, I have one more question for you before we part. And that is, if you could share with us the person or persons that have influenced you the most in your life and why.
I've been pretty fortunate. I would say my younger years was for sure my father. He was an entrepreneur. And so he taught me to think a little out of the box. So that allowed me to really grow. And then from there, I would say it's my children. My two oldest, they challenged every thought. It was not, sure, Mom, we'll do whatever you say. It was like, why? Why do we need to do that? And it allowed me to see that they wanted to buy in, but they wanted to know why. Well, they helped me to think it through. So now I can help other people. So that they really played a big part in College Ready.
I'll put you on the spot for a second. Any parting words of inspiration or encouragement for our parents out there and also for our high school students?
Absolutely. I would say that planning is your key to success. If you think it's just going to happen like Facebook, it doesn't just happen. You want to strategize. It's okay to dream big, but then have a plan. If it's just an idea, it won't help you get into college. You have to take action.
Take action. Take action. One other word I would say that I would love for you to use more, because that's what you do, and that is empower. I think you empower parents and you empower kids to be successful in doing this process. So this is just my suggestion. I would add that into your literature, because that's what you do, because I feel empowered just listening to your message today, because you're well versed in what you do, and obviously you've been very successful at it, and I can wish you nothing but continued success.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Awesome. As always, I'm Coach T. I'm here to educate, support, and inspire the next generation of leaders. Until I'll see you next time, take care.
Be sure to check out the new podcast, Teen Speak, Empowering Today's Youth, with Coach T and Coach Keith Senzer. Available on your favorite podcast platform.